Hello, everybody. How are you doing? All right. Let's just get started here. I'm Andy Cohen. I'm a system architect at SUGCON in the content pillar. I've worked at various partners. I'm working on SUGCON since 2013. I started on SUGCON 6.6. And I joined SUGCON as a solution engineer, or in the solution engineering team as an architect. So it's interesting to me that I'm now an architect on product development, which is quite an evolution. But let me give you a little timeline for me. So I joined SUGCON. Then I started working on Edge in, I think it was March of 2019. Then I had this idea that we should publish XM content to Edge. I sent out an email, I think it was July 7th, 2020, and I think Nick Wesselman was like, "That's the dumbest idea ever." He just did not like the idea, and it just died on the vine. And maybe 3 months later, the idea got picked up again, and so then we started POC for the Edge connector. And then we did a POC for XM Cloud, and we had our first developers in 2022. It was November. No, it was 2021, November. And then we did the preview on stage. It was a year ago, tomorrow, it'll be 1 year ago that I was up on stage and Dave was up on stage and we were introducing you all to XM Cloud. And then we went GA and it was June or July of last year. So, you know, it's interesting. We have this nice little evolution of how we got to where we are today for XM Cloud. We had to get the Edge stuff in there, and it has not been that long since being able to go here starting with Edge. What I wanted to do real quick is understand the audience here. I wanted to know how many of you have used XM Cloud first. Can you guys raise your hands? So a good number of you, all right. How about, is there anybody, like, do you guys want to talk about something specific here? Like, what did you guys think you were getting out of this? Did you guys want me to announce brand new things for deploy, or like what did you think you're going to be getting out of this? Future. Okay. So you don't care about anything, just the future stuff. Okay. All right. Does everybody use it's only about half of the people here know deploy, it sounds like, and know XM Cloud. So I am not going to really talk about XM Cloud. I'm going to focus on just the deploy stuff. Just so if you want to hear about XM Cloud only, you guys can go to the other session next door. I think it's upstairs. Martin Miles has a great presentation, so I won't feel bad if you want to go do that right now. It does. Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Okay, all right. So let's review what we've done over the past year. Starting with the announcement of deploy for SUGCON, I had this really ambitious goal to present to you all. I don't know how many of you were here last year? All right, so a good number of you as well. So this isn't surprising then. Less than 5 minutes, right? Everything we were doing behind the scenes, absolutely. Less than 5 minutes. Awesome. Really, really excited. That's me, about 40 pounds lighter last year. Here, announcing that I'm doing a live demo. Really, really small. This is like the biggest console window ever. Here, I think I'm a little nervous now. I was pretty nervous at the time. And then I really like this one. Andy Cohen has balls. That's my favorite one. And then it went okay. You guys saw it, right? At the first deployment, I think it didn't ever complete. It just hung there forever, and I had to cancel it. And then The next one was over 5 minutes. It wasn't great. Live demo, deploy in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. It passed that 5-minute mark, and like standing up on stage, it was disappointing. You know, it was really disappointing. So I went backstage, and and Dave was back there, and I was like, Dave, that just sucked. That did not go well at all. So I ran upstairs, and I tested everything out again, and it worked perfectly, right? And I recorded it, and I put it on YouTube, and I tweeted out that that it didn't go so well, and then Dave graciously retweeted my tweet about, here's a real deployment. It actually worked, guys, look. And yeah, he was very nice to do that. Anyways, what else have we done, right? We presented around the world. Sebastian, when he's on our dev relations team, and myself, we both went around to try to show you guys in the community XM Cloud in person. We also went to SUGCON ANZ. We did a bunch of webinars, YouTube videos, blogs. We have a Slack channel. And the coolest thing about this is that people are actually using this. We have XM Cloud customers in production. I think, I don't know, when do they go live, Gary? Like just a few days probably at this point, right? So yeah, things are going really well. There's lots of buzz. Really excited about it. It's been a great year. So reviewing a little bit, like why we even did the whole deploy thing, it was actually, I think it was Nick Wesselman's idea, and he wanted to have this concept of GitOps, right? He wanted to have, he wanted to be able to take a deploy. Actually, he modeled deploy, the idea for it, after Vercel. He wanted a Vercel-like experience for XM, right? You can take a template and you can deploy it. You can check code in, commit on Git, and it appears there minutes later, right? That was the basic idea here. We also wanted to make sure we had automation available, right? For things that you couldn't do in our UIs, we needed to make sure that there was a REST API there. We wanted it to be scriptable. We wanted it to be repeatable. And that's useful for things like, because today we don't support Azure DevOps, right? So you can use the command line, or you can use REST API to actually integrate with how you want. So those are the biggest things about deploy: GitOps and then automation. The basic stages of deploy are we provision resources, the things that Sitecore needs, the databases, the indexes, all the other stuff, the Experience Edge tenant, things like that. We build your code. We support taking your custom code and your .NET code and your TypeScript or your React code, and we build that for you as well. And then we ship it, right? We do a deployment, and then it's available for our editing experience, right? The key thing is this is all about the authoring side of things. We started with an API, right? We went to the CLI, which you guys all saw the demo last year, and then we built the UI. And this is a screenshot of, I think this is one of the original screenshots of the UX that Julie Daunt put together. And it actually looks very, very similar to this today, but yeah, this is the original. I think I pulled this directly out of last year's presentation, but it looks very, very similar to this today. So what have we done since we launched? Let me do a quick review of some cool things that we've added. Swagger docs, right? You can go and look at deploy. You can execute these things live. You can add your authorization there, and then you can execute the other things. I don't need to go too much into this. You guys have probably seen Swagger. But it's all available there. It's versioned APIs. We're not going to break changes there. So as we add new things, it'll be versioned. Next, automatic updates. This was really, really key. This was just from a few days ago. So the way that automatic updates work is, it's no surprise, right? Yes, we have a SaaS ecosystem, right? SaaS-based ecosystem, and it's all front-end web apps, but we're still allowing you guys to have code, and we need to build it, and we need to build it on top of an image, right? So we build this on top of a Windows image today, and we take your code, we layer it on top, and Microsoft is going to make updates, right? Monthly, after Windows Patch Tuesday, Microsoft releases an update. About a week after that, their container images come out, and then about maybe a couple days, a week after that, we get our pipeline updated because we have to layer the Sitecore code on top of that as well. So we do automatic updates when Windows releases their updates. We do automatic updates when Sitecore has updates that we need to make for security reasons, or if there's also critical Windows. If Microsoft released an out-of-band release, it would also detect that as well. And then the last case, the last time we do updates, is whenever you deploy yourself. Every time you click the build and deploy button, or you're on the CLI and you deploy, we also update you to the latest version of the base image to get all the latest stuff. You're getting stuff, all the latest features. Like, you don't have to wait for Sitecore 10.3 or 10.4 or whatever. You're getting all the latest stuff that's tested. So we promised we were going to do this automatically, and we did actually have somebody triggering this once a month, but now it just happens automatically for you. Yeah. The next thing that we did, we added a connector for Vercel, right? Really, really proud of this. You can go to Vercel.com integrations, and you can see it there in their marketplace. In the featured, really, really nice to see that there. And that also just links you to the docs. But I'm going to show the UI and how you can use this a little bit later, so I'm not going to go too deep into it right now. So, integration with Vercel, that was big because this allows you to deliver your website. Not just edit the content, not to do just the deploy side of stuff, but to deliver it as well. Another thing that we've added is post actions since GA. Post actions are in the deployment. If you go to the deployment screen, it says starting up post actions, warm up, populate schema, re-index. There's also other post actions for, for publishing. There's different configurations that you can do, and I don't think I have a link to the docs. Let me see if I have it next page. Nope, I didn't put it there. But yeah, we have documentations about all of the things that you can have in the build JSON. And we plan on new post actions coming up soon too as well. The next thing that we added was environment details, right? We now allow you to expand your environment and show you, detailed information. What's your identifier, the ID, the tenant name, org ID, all this stuff that you probably don't even care about unless you need to, right? You don't need to know this stuff until you do. Your rendering host name, your site information, things like that. Click on sites, it navigates you to sites. Click on basic, it navigates you directly into pages. Set up hosting, this is how you trigger the link to Vercel integration, things like that. This used to be an experimental feature, and I'm going to show you guys that in a little bit, but it has since gone live. We also added environment variables. Now, this was pretty important. There's certain things that you guys want to add into your live running containers. So we added environment variables, and you go to your environment options, click on environment variables, and we set a few of them for you. The default here, for example, is actually info. I have this set to debug. We don't expose the GraphQL playground for the authoring, and we set Sitecore SPE to allow, but you can change that, and you can add your own. The way that this UI works right now is that when you set an environment variable, it does it for all of your rendering hosts or editing hosts and the CM server. The REST API, however, supports a target. If you go to the documentation of environment variables, it actually supports a target. And we document that target of the environment variable, the CM or the rendering host name. So we do support this. We also support it on the CLI, but I'll show you some more in a little bit. Also, environment logs. Now, this is tricky. How do you say this? So if your environment ever went down, we still wanted you to be able to see your logs. So you can look at your logs directly in the deploy app. You can still look at logs the same way that you did before in Sitecore, but we do show you the logs directly in here. So you can go into each individual log and see all the Sitecore stuff that you guys are used to seeing. But you don't need to go into Sitecore to get that. We also support rendering host logs, so you can see all of the JavaScript goodies in here for how we for the running stuff. This thing is just rolled out. If after you deployed and you had put let's say you had a bad XTT transform, or I don't know, maybe you didn't include a reference to something, and it built and it got out there. Usually it's going to be some config thing that's going to prevent your instance from starting. Well, if you have bad code and you deploy it and it doesn't start, we're not going to roll that deployment into production. We're not going to actually start it for you. So that is an interesting question, right? Your deployment's going to fail, but you can't log into it to see this yellow screen of death. There's no way for you ever to get this. And the yellow screen of death starts before the Sitecore logs start. So how are you ever going to get into this information to see what went wrong? Well, there wasn't the ability to do that. You'd have to contact Sitecore support or somebody on Sitecore Slack, and there was no way to do this. Well, we've added, we are now outputting this information for you in the deploy app so you can see why it would have failed. And in this case, you can see could not find a type because rendering host item init processor 1, we just modified a config file. We added the 1 on the end of it to because we wanted it to fail. But this is a similar situation that you might have. So that was pretty important as well. Another thing we added was environment health. You guys can use these endpoints yourself. You can. I'm using trace on the CLI, so you guys can see all the things that the CLI is doing. It's making a request to the environments API, and it gets the JSON response, and it gets the URL of the environment, the host, over there, and then it pings it. It pings the readiness endpoint. So you could use this for automation as well, or you could just ping that URL if you wanted to as well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you have like custom endpoints as well? Because sometimes we have like custom checks on certain websites.
Custom endpoints outside of the authoring, or custom endpoints on the authoring?
No, what I mean is something provides a class /live/ready. We implemented some additional ones, so we are going to.
We don't support that today, but we're always interested in new use cases. So let's talk after, or you could talk to Bart too. He's right behind you. So yeah, and also please, if you guys want me to answer some questions, please stop me. Raise your hand, yell, I don't throw something. We also added organization health. Are your indexes, functioning properly? Is your storage where the logs are? Can you access that? Can you access your images? Things like that. The organization level stuff. Enough with this. Let's look at the actual UI. You guys saw me log into it. Let's go back and see this. So this again, this is going to be review. If you guys have been using XM Cloud, I just wanted to show you all of the stuff where we've gone. So here's deploy. Here's the UI. We have a place where we have a wizard that you can create it from a template, right? This is what we call the XM Cloud Foundation head template. We had planned on doing additional templates for you, but this is all based on a repository in our Sitecore Labs GitHub account. Or you can start from your existing code. Maybe your partner or you personally have your own starter kit, for lack of a better term, that you want to use, that you spin up for every single new customer or implementation. You can use this way to integrate with GitHub only right now, and then move on and deploy it. You had your project view, where I'm not going to look at that one. Let's look at this one. You can edit your project details, the name. You can see the repository information. You can create new environments from here. You can build and deploy. You can edit your environment details. Link to another branch if you had other branches. So let's say I wanted to create a second environment and use Git flow for your deployment model. You could do that. You could also use promotion. So you can take a deployment and you can deploy it to another environment. If I had multiple environments, I could do that as well. What was that message? Deploy. Dev cannot be used as a promotion target because it's associated with the linked branch. So if it's linked to source control, you can't deploy it to it. Let's see what else we have. You can delete your environment, and then again, you guys saw view environment logs. This is how you get to the details. Today, this is how you get to the details. It's not very intuitive at all. Also, the header is an accordion. We're changing that, obviously. And I showed you this page mostly. We also have the authentication clients. This is sometimes confusing to people. We're actually going to change the name of this, but you can create environment authentication clients. These are client credentials, machine-to-machine clients that are used for automation purposes. An environment authentication client is there's two kinds. There is one that you use for Edge and one that you use just to communicate with using the CLI or the authoring APIs directly for that CM server. The Edge administration client is so you can access the Edge REST APIs or access the new Edge CLI that's going to be. Did I just say something I wasn't supposed to? But I just did. Edge has a CLI. I don't know if it's been released yet, but it's coming out very, very soon. We also have organization level clients. Organization level clients give you administrative access to all of the environments in your org, and they also allow you to do deploy functionality. The environment clients, you cannot deploy. The organization clients, you can. There's been some discussion on Slack about should we allow these clients to deploy, but they're meant for the environment. Anyways, let's talk about that afterwards if anybody wants to. We also have a status page, if you weren't aware, that talks about all the different pieces of our system that you can monitor for as well. So we have the status page. We also have it on a REST API as well. What is it? Health. So you can also monitor it that way. All right, so that's our UI, right? Going through this, to me, it doesn't seem like, how much time do we have here at this point? All right. So it doesn't seem like a lot to me, but that actually is a lot. Like we've done a lot over the past year, but there's more coming, right? There is actually more stuff. I forgot to show this. Whoops, I wanted to show that XM Cloud is alive, but past that. So let's look at what's coming. So the UX refresh. We have Rob Coyle in the audience. I'm showing his live mocks that I just told him about it right before this presentation. So there may be notes in there that he doesn't want me to show, but we'll find out. Oh, it didn't show up. Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't going to show the mocks yet. I'm going to show our staging environment. We have an experimental feature in our staging. We're going to push this to prod. I'm pushing our teams to get it out there next week. But you can, in staging, you can turn on the beta UI, and it looks completely different. We've changed how it looks. You can see all of your projects. In this view, we have this new sidebar. Now, this is not 100% complete. They don't want to release this until we have the deployments there. We don't have this view today in the other UI. There's no list of all your deployments all at once. You can only see your deployments underneath an environment. You had to go projects, environments, then deployments. But now we're going to show deployments. I would even say we should show environments as well as an item there. But projects, a brand new view. You can also filter onto just your projects, which is useful. When you drill into a project, you see the environments, you see the details, the environment options, creating your environment. It's very, very similar to what it was before, after that, but we have a whole new, more intuitive view. The plan also is to add descriptive text to everything, so it has more context and lets you know what you're trying to do. There'll be like informational stuff about what are these? Why would you create a project, right? The authentication clients have been changed to credentials, which makes a little bit more sense. That may change in the future. I'm not sure, but looks like that's what they're going to name it now. Connections. This is where you will be able to see all of your GitHub connections or Azure DevOps connections or your Vercel connections. So this is when you integrate with these other providers, this is where you will be able to see it. This is really boring. I'm realizing that you guys see, oh great, connections. But that's right there. Also, links to documentation, and this release notes is great out there, but we aspire to show you public release notes as well. And then the status, a different view, and then the settings area. This allows you to go back and forth between this new UI. But when we launched Vercel, the Vercel connector, we put it as an experimental feature, and so we can allow you to see things that aren't officially supported yet. And then we have on our help, there will be being able to create a support case contextually. I think is also really important. So that's the new UX for deploy. This should be rolling out soon. Let's see what else we got here. So upcoming features, what are we doing next? I mentioned targets. Well, we're adding targets to the UI. Little drop down, all CM or rendering host, end of the rendering host name. Now, I'm not sure. I think that this developer was telling me that it was added there, but I went back and I looked. This may just be a screenshot of the new UX. I couldn't tell. The next thing we've done, now this is really, really exciting to me. So this deployment, the build is 3 minutes and 50 seconds, just for build, right? Builds really vary. How many builds are going on? You're only allowed to do so many concurrently. Maybe we have to spin up more servers or whatever to do builds. But I've seen them go up to 8 minutes. If you're doing the Play Summit demo, it can take a while. And so why does this matter to you? As a developer, if I'm checking in my code and I'm pushing it out there, it's waiting. It feels like it's waiting forever. But let me just remind you, it used to take hours to deploy Sitecore. Now we're down to minutes and we're squabbling over this stuff. But it matters when you're doing development. The faster you can develop, the faster 15 minutes, all right. The better, the more stuff you can do. But we have got this down in our staging environment to between 1 and 2 minutes for the build. So let me show you that. Here's one I just did. No, I'm in the experimental UI, which is why it said that. Let's go back. So here is one I did a few minutes ago. 1 minute and 35 seconds to do the same thing that used to take 5-6 minutes. One other thing I wanted to point out here. The provisioning time is 3 minutes. When last year at SUGCON, it was 60 seconds. And the first deployment that failed was because we weren't checking to see if it was up or not, if those databases were actually available. Well, now we are, and it takes a while to recognize, are these databases up? But we want to be for sure that they are ready for you. We also aspire to pre-provision databases so that this deployment time literally goes down to 0. So that's something that should be upcoming after this build down, but that's, I don't know, that's something to celebrate there. The build time, 1 minute and 35 seconds. I'm super proud of that. My team's done an amazing job. Now here's Rob's mocks, the new wizard experience. I'm going to blaze through this because it's only 15 minutes, probably 10 now.
Can I ask
Yeah, go ahead.
for the environment variables, oh yeah, it's on, yeah. Will it be possible to use secrets from Key Vault?
No.
No.
From Azure Key Vault?
Yeah.
No.
No integration?
We have no integration, but that sounds like a great idea. I love that one. That's the first time I've ever heard that, but yeah, that sounds like a nice idea. So we'll be sure to talk about that. All right, more questions. Go ahead.
Is it possible to add custom post actions?
Custom post actions. Currently, there's no extensibility for post actions, but that's always been on our list of things because we knew that you guys would want to be able to write your own. The next post action we are actually working on is serialized items. Today, we take all of your serialized items and in your XM Cloud build JSON file, you define what your serialized or which CLI or what SCS modules you want to be converted to items as resources. But we want to give you guys the choice to also, maybe you want to just serialize them and then push them as a post action instead, because items as resources today actually has a memory limit. So if you push too much in there, it's gonna fall over eventually. But it's not extensible today, but we'll talk and we'll get that prioritized if that's important to you guys. Do you guys all want that, like extensible post actions, or? Yeah. All right. Any other questions while I'm paused here? One more.
So I have a couple of questions. So
Yeah.
First thing is regarding the upgrade strategy.
Uh-huh.
How is the promotion going to happen from one environment to another?
Sure. So if you're talking about you have a dev environment and you have a QA environment and a prod environment, right? Your classic Sitecore development model or something like that. How do you promote your code?
How does the automatic upgrade is kind of promoted from one environment to another? Is it like there's going to be any acceptance from the environment owners or the project owners?
Sure. So automatic updates are a completely separate process, right? We're going to make sure that you get the latest Windows security patches, latest Sitecore security patches all the time, latest features all the time. That's what our automatic update strategy is. We're never just going to automatically promote from, if you're talking about promotion or getting stuff from, how do you update from dev to QA to prod? We wouldn't do that.
Upgrade or something, or is it kind of applied to all the environments?
The updates happen to everybody all at once. Well, not all at once. It's kind of a rolling update, but yeah.
Okay. The second question is around the different stages that we're having right now, the build, deployment, provisioning, and so on. Mm-hmm. Is there any plan to have hooks, deployment hooks, or provisioning.
Webhooks, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, that is something that we are working on. Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool. I'm going to get into this new template because it's probably 10 minutes now. All right, so you guys saw this. So on this path, use our template. Again, more description about everything. I'm going to talk about the use the foundation template flow. Completely change the interface. It's not a tiny little modal. It should be a bigger experience. And explanation about what you're about to do and why you would want to do that. We have this new thing, quick setup, which is I want to just get started quick. I don't care about source control. I don't care about connecting it to GitHub. I don't care about any of that stuff. Just let me get in there and start XM Cloud. That's what that's for. Connect to GitHub, and you also see here, connect to Azure. Right? We are working on that connector. What? Azure DevOps, yes, Azure DevOps, absolutely. So I'm just going to go really fast through this because I want more time for questions. But this, it's a completely re-envisioned experience. We also want to not have this in a new tab. We want it to be in a new modal instead. We also, let's see, this is what I wanted to get to, is the editing host. You can also choose to use the rendering host or not. Right now, the XM Cloud build JSON is what defines these things. We are bringing a UI to the things that are in that XM Cloud build JSON file. Vercel has a very similar concept. You can have a Vercel JSON file, I think, or something like that, config, that I think takes precedence over the UI. I don't remember which direction it goes. But you can use our rendering host, or you can skip that step.
Yeah, can this configuration be automated as well? Using the CLI?
Great question. Anything that you can do in our UIs, you can do on our REST API. We haven't talked about putting this on a CLI yet, but that's great. We don't actually allow using our templates at all from the CLI because the CLI was meant specifically for the scenarios where, that are outside of the scope of what you can do in the UI.
So the provisioning can be automated completely?
Yes.
Super, thank you.
Yep.
Just repeat the question.
Sure. Repeat the question.
On microphone? Sorry.
I'll move on. Sorry.
Next question.
Yep. Next question? No? Okay. We'll also show you all the configurations of your editing host. Thought that'd be useful. And then a confirmation screen to show you what you've just done and what you're about to do. And you're familiar with this, and we're slightly changing this. Again, here's Rob's notes. Don't take any pictures. So that's that flow. The next flow is part 2, which is bring your own code, I believe. So in the bring your own code model, it's very similar. You're not choosing a template. You're bringing your own template, effectively. And it simplifies that experience. Be able to browse where you want your source code to, I think this is a screenshot maybe of, I don't know what it is, but browse the path where you want your source code to actually start from, or where we want to build it from. Where the editing host, where is it? Yeah, so you can also define all the values here. These are just text boxes, but they may not be text boxes. There may be more to it than this. And the same kind of confirmation screen. All right, so that's the new UX that's going to come. So not only have we had a new UI already ready to roll out in a matter of days, we're also working on other stuff for you. I mentioned this a bunch of times. Let me just emphasize. This is, I think we did a poll last year. 80% of people are on Azure DevOps. So yes, we are supporting this. Another thing that's really notable, deploying the content management server and the rendering host or editing host together, right? We do both of these at the same time. We are going to break these apart. So why? Why do you care about this? Again, as a developer, if I'm a front-end guy, if I committed my code and it's set to auto-deploy, I don't need to wait for the CM server to deploy. I shouldn't have to. And vice versa for the back end, right? You don't need to, if you make a change to the CM server, the front end doesn't need to change, right? So we are breaking these apart. Deploying the CM and the rendering host separately. The next thing that we want to work on is deploying a .NET rendering host. The next thing after that is just being able to deploy front ends, right? Without even a CM server. So that's a lot. I don't know if you guys think that's a lot, but that's a lot. I have time for some questions now, just 5 minutes.
You said that this is coming in matter of days. What is the timeline?
Sorry. This is coming in a matter of days. The build, the fast, super fast builds. This is being worked on. The new UI that I showed is in the experimental feature mode. That's coming in a few days. The other stuff is stuff, these are the priority items, right? These are the big ticket items that we are working on next. Now.
So Azure DevOps, you just started working on.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
For the rolling updates, how do you rebuild the custom layer? Do you use the commit?
Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
Well, with this new model,
Yeah.
we're not rebuilding your code. And let me say it this way. When we do an automatic update, right, that's what you're talking about, how do we take your source code, let me back up. When we build your code, we build an image that has your source code layer on it. So we can layer it on again on the base image later, so we don't have to rebuild all that together. That's how it is today. But we aren't going to be doing that when we roll out the super fast builds. It is a completely different way of doing things. The updates, like it's fast, and we're not going to be creating custom images anymore for you. We're just relying on a base image, and so when the automatic update happens, we just change the tag, and it gets updated. So it's much more streamlined. Next, anybody?
Yeah. So my question is regarding the how we can do community contributions. Like if you take, for example, the Bursal, they have like something like integration marketplace or something like this, where the community members can contribute to the marketplace and so on. So is there any plan in XM Cloud to have such marketplace, and also like, for example, starter kits that can be published by the community members?
Sure. I don't think we've had plans to have a marketplace or to do something like that for templates. What we had envisioned was, you remember in the very beginning where I showed choose your own code, and it was the choice of templates. Yeah. The idea was, or the thought at the time was that your company might have your own template. Well, we're focusing more on the front-end templates than we are the deploy templates. So, but to answer your question specifically, we don't have a marketplace yet, and we had not planned on one. It was more like an internal thing that you would do.
It is more of reusing the things that are already built.
Yep.
For example, if the customer is looking for Netlify,
yep.
So if it was built by some other community member, they can publish it.
Yeah, but
still used.
We don't have our own connectors. I think that there's people that have built their own connectors and kind of the same functionality that we have, similar to what the Vercel connector does. But I think I'm out of time. So, yeah.
We still have time for one question.
One question. All right.
Yeah, will we be able to connect to GitHub without giving access to the entire organization?
Yeah. So, no. And there's a reason for that, right? We can't look we can't create GitHub doesn't allow you to create a project unless we have access to the whole account. So, yes, you can. And so if you bring your own code, right, you will already have created a repository. In that case, you don't have to grant it to the entire org. That's the one case where you don't need to. You could fork it yourself. You don't have to use our wizard, and you could bring your own code or use the CLI or the REST API. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
All
Andy.
right, guys. Thanks.